The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
All righty, here we go, and we're going to dive into this pretty quick because Tennessee with a lot more transfer portal news than we possibly ever dreamed. Also, Off the Hook Vol history coming up a little bit later in the program. Our 5 favorite minutes ends every program as it's about you. We want to converse with our friends on the message board. Florida State threatening to boycott the Orange Bowl. Why? I completely understand that. Will Levis still getting ripped by Tennessee fans, which I think is funny because he puts mayo in his coffee. Miracle Whip. No, he's more of a Hellman's guy. Also, there are several transfer portal quarterbacks that could enter the SEC. We've seen before, a la a Joe Burrow, how one could have a major impact. So what does that mean for the Vols? I'm going to tell you that Tennessee's deal with the the SEC's deal with the ESPN is not as bad as you thought because a Manningcast is going to do the Tennessee-Florida game, which is simply awesome. And also transfer portal news, and it is definitely newsy. Is it good or bad? That's what we'll discuss. First, Caleb, how are you, sir?
I am okay, Dave. I know we're going to talk about Will Levis in a minute, but I just have to say I'm really, really upset. My Titans had a chance to take sole possession of the 4th pick in the NFL draft last night after the Giants beat the Packers, and we decided to go and win against Miami. What is wrong with us? I want that draft pick. I don't want any wins. I'm going to be so mad if we cost ourselves a high draft pick trying to make the playoffs with this crappy.
Can't make you happy. Can't make you happy. This is the difference between me and you is as a Cowboys fan, I have different expectations. As a Titans fan, you expect to get a high draft pick. I expect to win the Super Bowl each and every year. Here we go.
You've been let down for about 30 years now. So
that's right. Now the majority of my life, yes, I have, but those are my expectations. Today's tough question is now. And boy, we're going to jump right into this transfer portal news that just keeps coming and coming. And on the surface, I can tell you what people are talking about in Gainesville, Tuscaloosa, Oxford for the talk shows that try to hold themselves up to Off the Hook Sports. I can tell you what they're talking about. They're saying Tennessee's in shambles. Tennessee's going crazy because of the transfer portal. Are they? You know, you'll get a genuine answer here. It's today's tough question brought to you by Andy Mason of AndyMasonRealEstate.com.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Okay, so if you want to go ahead and take part in today's tough question now, then you can do that. You can also give us your thoughts on the message board. So we have our options up. Can you read the options for me on today's tough question on YouTube where you can vote in our poll? Let's go ahead and get that up there if people want to take part. And then we're going to tell you who the Vols will miss next year from the transfer portal and who they won't. So what are our options on YouTube right now?
So Tennessee's transfer portal standing is a serious problem, slightly troublesome, part of the process, or taking out the trash, bye-bye.
Did you like that last one?
Like that one. It's a good one.
Okay, so on the surface, tell me where you would vote, and then I want to break down some of the defections that are coming down the pike, and there are new ones if you haven't tuned in recently. So your thoughts, where would you fall in there?
I'm still at part of the process. I'm not going to say taking out the trash. Bye. There are a couple good players that entered the portal that I don't think Tennessee would have wanted to enter. But I think it's par for the course for every team to lose a couple of players that they may like into the portal. Tennessee hasn't lost Nigo into the portal. They haven't lost Squirrel White into the portal. They haven't lost Omar Norman Lott or Arian Carter or James Pierce. I mean, when you talk about the weapons of weapons, Tennessee hasn't lost any of those type of players. I mean, so I can't sit there and say at this moment that now it may lean slightly troublesome because they have lost 3 potential starters for next year at defensive back into the portal. One who now I think would have been a starter next year, but I say potential because we're not so sure they would have been starters given what else Tennessee has coming back there. So the only troublesome loss to this point has been Tyler Barron, who I do think is a very valuable commodity, but I don't think Tyler Barron is capable of being a number 1 edge rusher. He needed to play opposite Byron Young, and then he needed to play opposite James Pierce to be effective.
I think if you exclude Tyler Barron, it's taking out the trash. Bye. But I'm going to go part of the process, which right now leads at 33%, slightly troublesome 28%, a serious problem 17%, and taking out the trash. Bye. Is 22%. So let's go ahead and dig in to what the Vols could very well be losing. Now, I do want to say this, not as any sort of disclaimer that these guys are coming back or that I believe they're coming back or anybody within the program has told me that they're coming back. None of that, okay? But you can come back. But Josh Heupel would have to take you back. So just so everybody knows, because it's a fairly new thing. We're talking about, 5 years since transfer portal? You can go into the portal and go back to your school, but your scholarship is not held for you. So these are not definite defections, but certainly when you enter the portal, you have made public your intentions that you're not real happy with what's going on in your current school, whether that's because of your checkbook via NIL, playing, championship runs, whatever the case may be. So here's the latest. Senior safety Tamarian McDonald and junior cornerback Deshaun Rucker on Monday became the 5th and 6th volunteer defensive backs, not overall transfer portal players, defensive backs, 6 to enter the NCAA transfer portal. It joins Warren Burrell, Jack Luttrell, Danico Slaughter, and Brandon Turnage. Burrell announced Sunday night on social media that he's transferring to Georgia Tech, so he's definitely gone. All right. So there you have that group. Now, what do we know about McDonald? McDonald played in 42 games for Tennessee, made 24 starts, 116 tackles, 8.5 tackles for a loss, 4 interceptions, notching a career-high 10 stops against Alabama on October the 21st. Signed with Tennessee in 2020. As for Rutger, he's about as good as Wes Rucker at playing football with Go Vols 24/7, who I love. I love Wes. We need to have him on the show sometime. All right. So your thoughts. Let me start with you, Caleb, and what this means for Tennessee's program. Because I have a theory, and I'm going to propose it, and I'm going to write a column about it later today. I have a theory that I feel pretty strongly about. I'll go ahead and hint and tease. It's optimistic. For the Tennessee fans out there. But I want to get your thoughts, just surface first, and then we'll dig deeper into it. It's brought to you by Andy Mason, AndyMasonRealEstate.com. There's nobody with better prices, nobody with better service than AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Support our sponsors. They mean a lot to us. That's why we're here. I can tell you I've known Andy Mason since we were in high school. Things we did I don't want to tell you about. But Andy Mason is a fantastic person, AndyMasonRealEstate.com. All right, so you say it's part of the process. That leads me into Caleb's thoughts now. Caleb, what are your thoughts on this mass exodus of defensive backs?
So there's only a few possibilities. The first and simplest could be NIL money. Maybe they got now. I think that's the least likely. I don't think Jack Luttrell got offered a bunch of NIL money to leave Tennessee. No disrespect to Jack Luttrell. I wish him the best in all his future endeavors, whatever he does. I just don't think he got offered some more NIL money to go elsewhere. So
and he wasn't playing. He wasn't playing.
Let's not
be mean to anybody, but if there's anybody on this list that's leaving because he wants to get on the field. It's him, right?
Exactly. And I guess in a workaround that is NIL, because you can't get your NIL money until you get on the field, and you're not going to get on the field at Tennessee. And so that's probably the calculation he made.
Caleb, I hate to let you in on a little secret, but Jack Luttrell called us and was staying at Tennessee and wanted to do the ball report with Jack Luttrell. I wouldn't pay him. So he's nowhere. He's not even in the ball. He's not even in the ballpark of NIL money. By the way, the Vol Report with Jacob Warren, the Vol Report with Cooper Mays coming up later today. Be sure and hit that like and subscribe button. Continue, Caleb. I'm sorry.
It's okay. So where I'm at with this is the red flag to me was yesterday Tamarian McDonald. I didn't see this coming. Because of all the transfers, Tamarian McDonald, I was sure was locked into a starting spot next year. And so either there's the issue with Willie Martinez, which you talked about yesterday, or Tennessee is so high on their young defensive backs and so high on their incoming defensive backs that Tamarian McDonald knows that even though he started this past year, he's going to be relegated to the bench, which is a good sign for Tennessee. That means Tennessee secondary will be dramatically better next year. But I got to say, I thought they'd be dramatically better this year, and I was wrong. So I've kind of given up thinking the secondary is going to be dramatically better. Although I take that back. Secondary was dramatically better this year. Y'all can think I'm crazy for that, but it was significantly better than 2022.
Well, I don't know about dramatically. I just think there are a bunch of dudes that aren't very good at playing defensive back in the SEC. I mean, I hate to make it that simple. Now, I think coaching is a factor in that, and you mentioned the Martinez factor. So where is Tennessee with Willie Martinez? Are they going to offer him another year? He is the only coach the only assistant coach that doesn't have a contract that goes beyond this year. Technically, it's up after this season, which I would assume would be the Citrus Bowl. It doesn't mean they're not going to keep him. Doesn't mean he wants to be here. I've heard rumblings that he's not real crazy, and I don't think Tim Banks is real crazy about coaching with this offense in place. That doesn't mean they're not going to stay there, and that doesn't mean they're not going to be eventually happy if they win championships. But right now, it is a frustration. We all have frustrations in our job. And I think it's frustrating when you have a program that's so built around an offense that it somewhat hampers what you can do in practice, and your guys are on the field for about 800 plays a game. So let's be
honest, defensive backs don't want to commit because of that. That's why it's hard to get talented defensive backs if you're Tennessee. They know what system they're going into if they commit.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So you got to find the guys that want it. And, Deion Sanders has come up on this program a lot. And he was a guy that wanted to face the number one guy, that wanted to return punts and was upset that he didn't, wanted to play receiver, even though he looked like he was lost out there. You want guys that want it. So that you're going to have to find guys that want it and shut down.
And he
guys.
wanted the pressure of having to win the Super Bowl, hence why he signed with San Francisco and then went and signed with Dallas. And
right.
He embraced the pressure, that the expectations that came with it.
Absolutely. It was on the front page of Sports Illustrated. So those are the guys when he signed with the Cowboys. Those are the guys that you're looking for. Those guys aren't
not that
out
you're going to
there.
get a Deion Sanders.
No. We're not saying Deion Sanders, but those are the guys that say, "Hey, look, I get to go out there and I have an opportunity to make more plays." Okay, and Fred White said this. Said I would love to play defense with this offense in place because the other team's going to be throwing the ball around a lot to try to come back theoretically when things are going well on offense. And I'm going to have an opportunity to make more interceptions, make more plays. That's what it's all about. McDonald is a loss. Rucker is not, I don't think, a significant loss, even though he is related to Wes. Just kidding, Wes.
Rucker
Wes is about as athletic. Wes is about as athletic as me, so we can joke around about that. What was that?
Rucker was a speed guy, but Rucker and Christian Charles were both recruited as cornerback because of their speed. But as you know, Dave, speed does not translate to playing cornerback at all.
Agreed. Did Nico Slaughter, I think, may be an NIL thing. I think Danico Slaughter and Tyler Barron both may be an NIL thing. Listen, we're going to talk about this later in the program. They've got to scrape together some money to pay some other people. And Tyler Barron referred to that, liked a tweet on Twitter that you're going to have to protect this $8 million quarterback, referring to Nico. So I think Slaughter is an NIL thing. Turnage maybe to some extent. But have you thought about this? here's just a theory. Okay, I'm going to throw this out there. Who would you project right now as the top 5 defensive backs if all of these dudes left? All of these. If every defensive back we talked about, who would you project as the top 5? And I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot. We didn't discuss that in the 3:45 a.m. meeting.
The top 5 still remaining at Tennessee?
The starters that will come in, underclassmen, whatever, just top 5.
For mine, it's obvious. I mean, it's cornerbacks. I think it's going to be Jordan Matthews and Ricky Gibson III. I think it's safety. Wesley Walker has the free safety spot locked in. And I think the 2 questions were strong safety and nickel. Tamarian McDonald was the star guy. So that's where there's a question at star. Strong safety, I'm all in on Boo Carter. I think Boo Carter steps in and starts immediately. I have heard enough about him where I'm getting swept up in the reports surrounding him, but I'm pretty high on the idea that he's going to start a strong safety like immediately, and largely because Larry Slade is not coaching and thinking that Tennessee should start some other random, veteran who can't play over Eric Berry.
I have a feeling what they'll do is they'll flip Boo to free and move Walker up to strong. But nevertheless, those are your 2 safeties. The corners would be the 2 young guys in Matthews and Gibson. And who's your nickelback?
My star, I am totally lost without Tamarian McDonald. That's why Tamarian McDonald raised the red flag for me yesterday. Maybe John Slaughter is, but that is one where, it's people. I just saw him on the message board. It's not going to be Andre Turrentine. Sorry, I saw enough. He can't play. He never should have been a 4-star. And I know I said that about Dante Thornton, and I think I might have been proven wrong, but Turrentine has been in the system longer, and he's barely saw the field. Or it could be actually Christian Harrison or Jordan Thomas, the son of Rodney Harrison. Because a lot of playing nickel or safety, Dave, is about how well you understand the game, right? More than anything else.
Sure. And I'll tell you this. I like Gabe Judy Lawley a lot more than you.
I keep forgetting about Gabe Judy Lawley. It's him. He'll play nickel.
Yeah. So, Gabe Judy Lawley came in and said, I don't care if I start. I just want to learn to play every position so I can help. That's like somebody walking into my office and saying, I don't care what I do. I don't want any credit on the website or the show. I just want to transcribe all your quotes. Okay. That would be awesome. I love that guy. That one statement alone, if he were terrible, I would still stand up for him. So I like Gabe Judy Lawley. So we're talking about a group that, and I might do the rankings this afternoon. We're talking about a group, and I know that Derek's saying not in the slot, but on the edge. I get that. We're just kind of talking about the top 5 here. Gabe Judy Lawley theoretically could be a guy who could play safety, and you could walk Walker up into that nickel star position theoretically. And we're throwing stuff out there. Well, those are the top 5 guys. That ain't a bad group. If Gibson and Matthews come anywhere close to living up their recruiting hype. Now, I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke and tell you that everything is going great, because depth is an issue. 1 or 2 of those guys go down and you've lost all your depth to the transfer portal. So nothing's grand about this, but I think at least 2 of those guys, if not 3, were asked to cruise on out. And I think Tennessee upgrades at corner based off talent with Gibson and Matthews. So do I think it's time to raise the red flag in the secondary? No, I don't. And to be honest with you, a lot of those guys play man because what they do up front, they're going to be challenged. But let's face it, if Tennessee doesn't pressure the quarterback the way this defense is built, they're not going to win a lot of football games defensively anyway, right?
Exactly. No, that's true. This is all about the pressure that's gotten up front. And I fully agree. And for those who, it's funny, Rucker hit the portal. So I think Christian Charles is one of only 3 members of the 2021 class left on the team, maybe less, because Jeremiah Crawford's out of eligibility, right, Dave? So JJ Crawford's gone. So I think it's just, yeah, Christian Charles and Jalen Wright may be all that's left, and Jalen Wright's going to be gone probably from all sources we hear to the NFL. So, but guys, I just have to tell you all this. If you were a member of the secondary and you've been in the system for 3 years and you weren't starting and you saw how the secondary played, you probably can't play at this level. Am I right, Dave? I mean, that there is, if there one in all things being equal, if you're a program at your peak, if you're a program at your best, Tennessee in the 90s, the reliable players were starting, or at least rotational players, by their third year, weren't they, Dave? Almost always. They were making an impact.
Completely agree. I couldn't have said it better myself. Listen, if you can't find your way onto the field by your junior year, barring injury, problem is probably not the program or the scheme. Problem is probably you. Portions of the program brought to you by our friends. Boy, have you seen their new facility? There might be an Off the Hook studio there one day. I don't know, but it's awesome. It's like 800 million square feet. It's Tennessee Cider Company, the original hard cider of the Smoky Mountains. Use the promo code HAT. That's HAT to receive some free swag with your cider order, available most anywhere in the United States. tncidercompany.com. cidercompany.com. Use that promo code HAT, and they know we sent you, and you get free stuff, and you can have cider delivered almost anywhere in the United States. That's pretty darn awesome, if you ask me. All right, now the guy who is returning is Gerald Mincey. How big of a deal is that? Well, I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to jump in the hot tub with Cooper Mays that we love to do. 4 Downs brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas.
4 Downs brought to you by Dynasty Spas, the most comfortable spas made in the United States of America, right here in East Tennessee. Drop in for the all-new showroom in Athens. Dynasty Spas, perfect for all 4 seasons. 4 Downs, presented by Off the Hook Sports.
All 4 seasons, all 4 downs. We jump in the hot tub with Coop. Coop, what do people need to do?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
All right, and which down?
Coop here. First down.
Gerald Mincey returning. Big deal, kind of a big deal, huge deal. What are you taking?
I'm actually going to say big deal, but also, I'm not trying to be disrespectful with Gerald Mincey, but also not surprising. I mean, did Gerald Mincey really, did anybody really think Gerald Mincey was going to be able to test the NFL draft waters, guys? So
no.
I'm going to say big deal, but not surprising.
No, agree with you on that. I think that I will rarely turn down depth on the offensive line. Like some of these guys at the defensive in the defensive backfield, I might say, hey, why don't you cruise along? It's not the end of the world, and that's fine. But you're not going to turn down depth in the offensive line. So second down, Coop.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
If I gave you all the players, all the defensive backs back, and they're back for another year, or you can get Coop back, who are you taking?
All of the defensive backs that were on the team last year?
No.
Okay.
Just the ones in the transfer portal, not the ones that ran out of eligibility.
Oh, I would take Coop over every single one that entered the portal. Coop by himself.
Combined. So you get
every single one of them.
You like 5. I would do. It sounds stupid, but you get 5 or 6 dudes versus Coop. I'm taking Coop. And yeah. I don't really think it's close.
Now, if you tell me that Matthews and Gibson are entering the portal, then I start to think, because I think a lot of Tennessee's future is based on what those 2 guys are going to blossom into as cornerbacks.
I totally agree with that. Okay, so what down, Coop?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
All right. Realistically, who would be the worst person that could possibly leave Tennessee? I say realistically, so I'm ruling out the Nicos of the world. I'm ruling out some of the guys that we know are going to be back because it's the right move for them. So let me rephrase it. Who are you most concerned about that we haven't mentioned yet that just could be out there floating that could end up in the transfer portal or going to the NFL?
Okay, well, I am actually going to disqualify Cooper Mays from this discussion because I think he's such an obvious number one.
Oh, right. Yeah, sorry, I meant to do that. My bad.
Yeah, I'm going to make it tricky because Cooper Mays is just so obvious.
Right.
So Cooper Mays notwithstanding, it's a tie to me between Amari Thomas and Javonte Spraggins. And I don't know who I'd rather have back between those 2. And it largely depends on what Tennessee does in the portal, but it's one of those 2.
Right. Okay, I can roll with that. The good news is Spraggins announced late Monday night that he would be back. I thought it was Spraggins
he
too.
No, Mincey announced it.
Let me see here.
I missed that. Did Spraggins announce?
Oh, that was Mincy. Excuse me. I misspoke. I have a bad habit of getting those two guys confused. All right. So, Spraggins definitely. But I get the feeling from the get that Spraggins is going to be back. I guess I'm just waiting for an announcement. I've heard that he is going to be back. I think that's just a matter of time. My bad for the misspeak. What down, Coop?
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
All right. So, 4th down, as far as let's get back to Mincy. That's what this was about. What kind of an impact does he have next year? He is a starter every week. He is a starter sometimes because of injury, or he's just a contributor whenever he can get on the field. Hit like and subscribe, please.
I think he's a starter every week. I think Mincy, we were worried about his toughness going into the year, but I think a switch flipped. Now, you could tell me, because I know you were a little bit closer to some of the people that cover practice, but it seemed like Mincy, even though he wasn't mentally there, we thought the minute his number was called due to injuries, he didn't really back down. Seemed like he stepped up pretty well. So I think with Crawford gone, and I think Jeremiah Crawford is a guy you love, you respect. But you ever been in a situation, Dave, where you feel like a great leader maybe needs to be gone so the guy behind him can kind of emerge and like take the charge that he needs to take? Kind of reminds me of, to give you an example, remember when the Panthers got rid of Steve Smith because they needed Cam Newton to step up and be more of a vocal leader, and he wouldn't do it with Steve Smith there? It kind of reminds me of that.
Remember that, actually.
Yeah, and I wonder if J.J. Crawford being gone, as great of a leader as he was, will actually kick Gerald Mincy into high gear as leader on the outside.
Okay, I'm going to add it down because I want to ask you about the perception. You and I know about these guys, but when it reads in Baton Rouge or Austin, Texas, now an SEC team, essentially in about 3 weeks, or Norman, Oklahoma, or Gainesville, it reads as mass defections, everybody's leaving. So I want to ask you, how concerned are you about the perception? And I'll remind you that 4 Downs brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. Imagine having the best spas made right here in the U.S. in your backyard. Dynasty Pools and Spas has their showroom open in Athens with the best hot tubs and spas in the market. Delivery, they've got that. They can deliver to Knoxville, okay? So complete support, spa cover, and chemicals to keep your spa bubbling at its best. Dynasty Pools and Spas, amazing discounts for first responders, military, and even some blemish models that can save you a ton, and no one will ever notice. Dynasty Pools and Spas, go to dynastyspas.com or stop by their incredible showroom in Athens, Dynasty Pools and Spas. All right, so perception. I think this is a concern. I think that the fact that you went 8-4, that you lost the way you did against Missouri, and now you're losing players that you and I know aren't all big impact players. I think the perception is a concern. You?
I don't think it's as much a concern as it used to be, because I think that, yes, could it affect Tennessee recruiting for 2025? Yes. I also think because of the transfer portal, I think a good season gives you a shot in the arm beyond what you could ever have. And I think for Tennessee, look, I've said this from the start, I'm going to say it again. I think Heupel is so all in on 2024. I think, Dave, he is so fully committed to 2024 to the point where he might be telling NIL boosters, like in the NFL where you front load contracts for free agents or you backload them because you want to be able to squeeze them all into your team to win a Super Bowl, like what John Elway did with Denver. I think he's telling all his NIL people, hey, put all your money of like 3 years worth, put it into this 2024 team to keep everybody. I think he's that all in on it.
Darla asked the question, curious how much NIL money does school have the ability to use? Well, that's different for each school, but I can tell you that Tennessee was rated as the top school by On3. Second, for the record, was Texas A&M. So the numbers, I would love to be able to tell you that Tennessee's spending $10 million a year or $1 million a year or whatever the number is, but you just don't know. It's all
transparency
private.
Is not required.
Yeah, it's all private transactions. So, and I guess if Spire Group were to ever go public, that would, if they were traded on the New York Stock Exchange, then we could determine those numbers. But I don't know how we're ever going to know those numbers until the school takes over paying the players, which is it's going to happen eventually. And I know a lot of people hate that. All right, so this is super cool. There's going to be a Manningcast in college. There's going to be a Manningcast for the Tennessee-Florida game. And I'm going to tell you why Caleb Calhoun was dead wrong about everything he said about the SEC and Greg Sankey in 2 minutes. Stay tuned.
Sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center. Ah.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Say wham.
What's up, everybody? This is Jacob Warren asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
I'm your Huckleberry.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Off the Hook Sports history coming up. We're going to talk about, this is pretty wild to me. It's a quote from General Nealon that I'm sure that Caleb can provide perspective to, because Caleb looks like he's 34, but he's like Benjamin Button. He was actually born in 1880. But it's a quote from General Nealon. Also, FSU threatens to boycott the Orange Bowl. Some people just love to watch the world burn, and I'm all about chaos. So that's a hint as to what I think about that. And then Will Levis, despite a good game, is still having a rough time on the social media sphere. But first, it is time for Caleb Calhoun to say, Dave, I'm sorry. You were right. And we might have Jimmy Himes on tomorrow to say the same thing, because he agrees with Caleb, and they argue about everything. They're like an old married couple. And but I think Jimmy has to say that Dave's right as well. And
If we are, I'm definitely the trophy husband, right?
It's the trophy husband. I hadn't really thought about that. I guess does that make him the earner? I don't know. What the age?
What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
You may be the trophy husband. Can I share a little something with you?
Sure.
But you might find it slightly insulting.
What's up?
Somebody came up to me Saturday at the gym and said, how long is Caleb going to grow that beard? So you might want to trim it a little bit. And now you're beardless, so you look like the trophy husband. I love it.
I know. Regulation Heidi. But, I should wait till he's on the show tomorrow. But Jimmy does look very good, too, for his age. So it's like one of those, I got to give him some credit. I mean, I think it depends. I think it depends if you have like a dad complex or not. All right. So here we go. Manningcast
doing Tennessee, Florida, and Ole Miss, LSU. I think you would agree that this wouldn't be happening if not for the SEC's alignment with ESPN. I think you would agree this is good for the conference. It's What the H, and it's brought to you by our friends at Herald Group Security Solutions. Leadership, experience, specialization, addressing problems through unique mission-specific mitigation techniques, making your children safer one school at a time. We've seen about the tragedies recently, so you need to go Herald Group Security Solutions to help make sure that your workplace and your children's school is safer. Go to the administrator at your company or your kid's school. Say Herald Group Security Solutions. This Manningcast doesn't happen if Tennessee had signed a multi-pronged deal with other networks like the Big Ten has. So will you at least give me, before I ask you if it's a complete, if you were completely wrong, will you at least give me this is super cool and doesn't happen with any of the other networks like CBS? Fair?
Fair. It's amazing for the fans. Love it.
Okay.
But no, I won't even give you that because I will say that actually, no, I'm retracting already. Fox has deals. You don't think, I mean, Tom Brady actually has a contract with Fox. What happens if there's a Brady cast next year for Fox Sports 1 games? I mean, that you think they can't do this?
Well, somebody's going to copy it, but I think the two, and I thought you might get to that. I think the two are incredibly unique, Peyton and Eli. I don't know that it's watchable with a lot of people. Like 99% of the population, I would probably rather watch the Ole Miss LSU game with my dog. So I don't know that there are a lot. Brady may be great on TV, but the chances are he's not going to be. Let's not sell Peyton Manning short. He went to Saturday Night Live, and I was like, this is going to be a, and this goes so far back. We were probably young, probably didn't have opinions going in. But when he was on Saturday Night Live, I thought this guy's going to blow it and look like a goofball. He did other public things, and he's just backed that up that I was exactly wrong. This guy is so smooth and good on camera because of his preparation. I don't know. There's a lot of dudes that can do that are former athletes. Maybe Michael Strahan. I also don't think there's anybody that has the brother sort of relationship thing going on. So I think that's pretty special, right?
I'll give you that. I think Peyton Manning is uniquely more talented. Look, I've been saying this with the Manningcast for a long time though, because you say the brother relationship. I think Eli almost devalues the Manningcast. He's not good on the Manningcast. He's just not. And so I actually,
well, I do kind of agree with that.
Yeah. And so I'm sorry, this is throwing Eli a bone. This should be Peyton Manning's show. And look, Peyton and Tom would be better together, honestly. I said this. If you guys have ever watched
you're probably right. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. And if you've ever watched the movie Trainwreck, LeBron's in it with some cameos. LeBron's actually really funny. And I've always called for a Manning, when LeBron retires, a Manning James cast where they both together call NFL and NBA games. Like,
you know, there's so many business decisions and relationships that go into these things that there's always a reason. I'm surprised the LeBron thing hasn't happened yet because he's had his pick of the stars that he would most want to get on.
Retires, though. He's going to have to retire first, though.
I mean, you think you make a couple of hours, right? In the beginning of the year?
I mean, LeBron is so committed to his body, though. It's kind of insane. He's got that Tom Brady level of commitment.
Almost like Will Chamberlain was committed to other bodies. So, this is super cool, and I think that getting into and they're also going to by the way do the LSU Ole Miss game, which for those that have lived on this side of the conference forever, that is a monster rivalry. I mean, Ole Miss hates LSU, and LSU hates Ole Miss, and I mean it's not Alabama Auburn, and I don't think any rivalry is, but it's pretty darn close. Just like Tennessee has too many rivals. That's part of the problem. They don't have that one that stands out, in my opinion. It depends where you were born. But not to get sidetracked, I think it's super cool. And I think I also believe that ESPN is going, for right or wrong, and it probably cost Peyton Manning the Heisman, so this is irony at its height. I believe they're going to be able to manipulate who wins the Heisman. I believe they're going to show highlights at certain times and they're going to be able to do things because the Sports Center is still your go-to. Now, it may not be 10 years from now.
No, it's not. I'm
it
pushing
is-
back on you. No, it's not.
It is my go-to, as it is. I mean, I Sports Center, every single one, because we have the DVR, records, and that's what I'm going to watch to make sure I'm caught up.
Oh my gosh,
because you're
Dave
young.
is like talking like it's 2001.
Okay, but let
You're
me finish. Let me finish. You're younger than me. You don't have kids yet. When you have kids, things change, and you don't watch sports for 3 or 4 hours a night, like I used to. So you got to get caught up, especially if you're hosting an award-winning show like this one with you, who knows a lot and probably more than me at times. So I think you're going to have the inside track to the Heisman. I think you're going to control the narrative more if you're on ESPN. How much money am I willing to give up for that? Probably not as much as they did compared to the Big Ten TV contract. I'll give you that. But I'm willing to give up some, aren't you?
No.
Some.
Not at all. Nope. None. And by the way, also, you keep talking about SC, like getting back to the Manningcast. We benefit as fans of this because this is going to be great. It'll be great TV. Again, so replace Eli. You can find somebody better than Eli. He's not good at this. But anyways, I still like the Manningcast overall.
You almost get the feeling, not to interrupt your thought, that Eli doesn't really like doing it. There's times where there's times where I watch him and I was like, he's like, all these damn cameras in my office.
You know what Eli is? Do you ever remember those? Not the ones where he was utterly ridiculous, because Will Ferrell had a lot of ridiculous skits in SNL. Remember those SNL clips where Will Ferrell was like almost super normal, but would say something ridiculous, but would have no concept that would say it's super normal sounding and super dry sounding, and it was just like hilarious. Yes. That's Eli, where it's like he says stuff and he's like so dead serious. You're like, wait, was he making a joke there? I can't tell. And that's fully Eli. So what I was going to say is this helps the fans. This doesn't help the SEC at all. Dave, ESPN didn't shell out one extra dime for this. This helps ESPN. They are the winners in this, not the SEC. They fleeced the SEC. They paid for the rights to the SEC. And now they're like, not only are we going to pay for the rights, we're going to broadcast you on multiple networks with different casts, and we don't have to pay an extra dime for it. The ESPN, this is going to save ESPN. ESPN is a sinking ship. They fleeced the SEC so hard, they're going to be saved. That alone is going to save them.
So on our message board, Robert says Eli needs weed. I'm not sure about that, but I can tell you the Hemp House is the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best CBD or Delta products. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. I don't know if he needs weed or like a stimulant.
No, he needs cocaine. Not that I'm advocating for that on the show.
Get the guys, get that man some Molly and see what happens.
Oh my gosh, Eli on Molly.
That sounds absolutely terrible. I love it. I love the fact that this happens. I disagree with you. I don't think it happens.
I love that it happened. I didn't say that I don't love that it happened. It's awesome that it's happening. I'm saying it's not helping the SEC. ESPN doesn't pay one. It's helping ESPN and the fans. The SEC should have negotiated more money out of this. They should go back to the drawing board now and say, because you're putting up on us on multiple networks, we need at least some of the revenue for advertising that you're going to bring in. But I don't.
Okay, but now, if you're a college football fan, okay, and you're not tied to a conference, and you have a game packaged like Tennessee, Florida, and then you have, let's say, another rivalry, USC, Southern California, and UCLA, and they're just the regular they bring Brent Musburger back, and it's just the regular hey, I'm kicking it to you now, and I've got a lot of
Musburger talking to all those USC girls.
Yeah, and I've got a lot of money on the game, baby. And so, as opposed to watching the Manningcast, I'm going to watch the Manningcast. I think that means more eyeballs. So does that help ESPN initially as Disney? Yes, but you get down the line and it helps you in your next contract negotiation.
By the time the next contract negotiation comes, though, the deals are going to be so disparate that I think the Big Ten, when the next round of conference realignment comes, is going to gobble up the schools that the SEC wants. You and I know, Dave, You know who both conferences really want right now over anybody else? The two schools?
Who?
UNC and Virginia. Both schools want North Carolina and Virginia desperately. Where do you think they're going right now if both conferences come calling? Both are going to the Big Ten. And
Why
the Big
would
Ten
they
has
do
it
that?
because the Big Ten payout is so much better. The payout to be in the Big Ten.
Not to
is
put you on the
significantly
spot,
better.
but what are the difference in the dollar figures? Not to put you on the spot, and if you don't know off the top of your head, we can do the research. Per school.
Per school. Well, I can't go per school. I have to go total for a second, but they're distributed mostly evenly. But okay, so the Big Ten signed a 7-year deal worth $7 billion. So they're getting $1 billion a year. The NCAA signed a 10-year deal worth $3 billion before they added Texas and Oklahoma. So now you have the Big Ten is dividing now with Oregon and Washington. The Big Ten is dividing $1 billion a year by 18 teams, whereas the SEC is dividing $300 million a year by 16 teams. That's much bigger payout per school. As a matter of fact, Oregon and Washington accepted less money to go into the Big Ten, and by all accounts, they're going to still be bringing in more money than SEC schools next year. And this is by the way, this is just for the next 7 years. Then the Big Ten gets to go back to the drawing board and renegotiate in 7 years for a bigger deal. Now, Dave, I will tell you this. I think it's a good business move to do this. You may think it's a bad business move, but I feel like the job of a company is to create the perception that it's worth more than it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Big Ten has created the perception that it's worth more than it is. It's not worth $7 billion. Okay, because guess what? CBS gets the third best Big Ten game of the week. That's what CBS paid for.
Okay, let me jump in there. We visited with Greg Sankey, and he said something, and he always says something within the 15-minute window that we have him. And I would like to think it was because I ask good questions, but maybe it's just because he likes redheaded guys, and he's like, hey, I'm going to pass this information to you. So I was the only one that we reported that we were not talking about federal legislation of NIL anytime soon. Like he started and nobody had asked him that, to my knowledge. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he said, well, you got to worry about the midterm elections, and then you've got the real presidential elections. And I'm just like, we're not talking weeks or months, we're talking years. And he's like, yeah, that's pretty much where we are. I thought he dropped a little bit of knowledge on us. Maybe I got lucky. Maybe it was a good question. Maybe he just likes Dave. But he said, well, kind of want to see how those pay out. So I wonder if there are stipulations in the contract based on ratings. I'm totally conspiracy theorying this, okay? But the way he said it made me wonder. So while you're probably right now, and it's hard for me to argue, I think there's a possibility in 5 to 7 years we're having a different conversation, and the Big Ten's not as rich as you might think it's going to be. You don't have to be rich to go to Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler. They have affordable game day jewelry, and basketball season is ongoing. They've got the fire opals that would be awesome for Christmas presents. If you know anybody in your family, especially the ladies that absolutely love the Vols, that's rickterryjewelry.com, rickterryjewelry.com. Support our sponsors. That's why we're here. And that affordable game day jewelry, the fire opals, are awesome. So what about that? Could we be having, it's within the realm of possibility, right? We could be having a different discussion about the amount of money that's paid out 5, 7, 10 years from now.
Are we sure Greg Sankey didn't say that because he has to say that? Because he's trying to save face, and he is hoping against. And are we sure he's not hoping against hope that a deal gets done? And now what?
Very fair.
Here's the long-term prospect, because this happened, by the way, with the NBA. People talk about how the NBA is so massively overvalued. They're right, but you give credit to the NBA for getting that deal, for signing those deals. So the NBA's philosophy is, we'll fleece the networks now, create a giant bubble, and then when the time comes where someone's left holding the bag, we'll just make sure we're not the ones holding the bag, and we'll renegotiate another deal. So I think that's the Big Ten's model. So because what's going to happen in 7 years, I can tell you this, when the Big Ten comes up for another round of negotiations, The networks are going to look at what ESPN's getting from the SEC, which is going to be amazing, and they're going to be like, we're not getting that from you guys. CBS isn't getting that to call the third bet. CBS is paying what ESPN is paying for all the SEC to cover the Illinois-Purdue game on a Saturday. Things like that. Like, they are way overpaying for this. But if they're overpaying, that means the Big Ten negotiated well and is getting a good deal out of this. So what's going to happen is in 7 years, it's possible, Dave. I don't think it is because I've never seen this happen before. But do you think it's possible the bubble will be so inflated, the networks will come back to the Big Ten and say, we're not paying you what we paid you this time. We need more assurances or more promises from you if you want us to give you this type of deal again. And then the Big Ten won't be able to deliver.
I continually think that all these sports numbers like Shohei Ohtani, that they're going to start to settle. But I've been saying that for 10 years and they keep going up. So
I've been thinking
if you
that
ask
too.
me, I would say yes, but I don't know if it's ever going to happen or not.
And what happens when, and here's the weird thing. This is kind of on a more global macro scale, but American colleges are still the hub across the globe. People across the world come to America for college. So you're starting, and the Big Ten is a bunch of AAU schools. You're starting to see there's a strong possibility that college football and college sports will have a global reach in the future because so many people not from America come to college in America and then go back and leave America to go wherever they're from when they're done. And the Big Ten as an AAU conference, I wonder if they're thinking about a global reach to supplement these are things that they have that the SEC without a bunch of AAU schools doesn't have. They have some, Texas and Florida, I think are AAU schools and a few others, but the entire Big Ten is AAU. And I'm just saying,
it's an interesting thought. I also think that the foundation of the Big Ten, and let me tell you why, and I don't know that you and I have actually spoken about this. Go ahead and click that like and subscribe for me. We're going to bring some more people in. Be sure and share too. If you want to share on social media, we absolutely love that. The foundation for the Big Ten's plan is flawed. And we haven't discussed this before, but I'm going to tell you why. Because back in the day when I worked for the Mouse and went to an ESPN Summit, I like to learn things about business as much as football. And I talked to a TV exec there that he wasn't a little willy-nilly reporter like me. I mean, he's a big-time dude. They care a lot about attendance. So when that camera pans up and you see an empty seats for the UCLA Rutgers game, advertisers see that and that affects them, because you can't tell me that there's going to be that many people that are going to fly to see Rutgers across the nation, and you can't tell me there are that many Rutgers fans that are going to fill the stadium because they love UCLA. I think it's foundationally flawed. I think you're going to see a lot of empty seats in some of these games, and advertisers are going to back off. So you may be right in this initial. As a matter of fact, most everybody agrees with you, including Jimmy Himes, who will join us tomorrow. But I don't think long term that the Big Ten's plan, because they're so spread out across the country, is going to be nearly as profitable as a lot of people.
I think here's what I think the Big Ten is banking on. Doesn't matter how much advertisers back off or anything like that. Those networks are on the hook for that $7 billion. Let's assume they're on the hook no matter what happens.
Mm-hmm.
The Big Ten's philosophy is that with that $7 billion, particularly in an age of NIL, there will be more money for schools to do things that they want to do to their schools, and therefore they won't have to solicit the money from the boosters, and therefore the boosters can spend all the money buying the talent, at which point you will see Rutgers reach a level of talent that they had never reached before, which they are banking will draw more fans in. So what if, like 4 years from now, Dave, just thinking about this, 4 years into these contracts, right now the 7 of the 10 most talented schools are in the SEC. What if the Big Ten starts dominating the college football playoff instead of the SEC? You don't think that will spike attendance in the Big Ten at that point?
Fair point. I don't know why that you think and some people have said London NFL games, and I don't see it ever being an international sport. As a matter of fact, I think college football could be almost as big as the NFL in the States. I don't see it being as big internationally, but you've said that a couple of times. Why do you think that before we move on?
Well, specifically the Big Ten, again, because AAU institutions, which are like specific, like they get like specific academic ratings. These are the peak public colleges in the world. People all over the world go to these schools. They're all in the Big Ten. Whatever a French person thinks about American football, you don't think if they come, some dude from France wants to go to college in the United States. So they go to Michigan, which is an AAU school for some academics. You don't think they're going to get swept up in the whole American culture of college football with their friends when they're there? And you don't think that's going to stay with them for life? You don't think they're going to be like, I love America. I can't do accents. I'm not even going to try. But like
that, it's probably offensive. To some people, so don't draw a French accent.
Do you remember who's seen Love Actually? Anybody here? The movie Love Actually? Who has seen the movie Love Actually?
About 20 years ago, literally.
Who remembers when the British dude realizes he's more meant for American girls? So he flies to America, and the first night in a bar, he meets 3 girls and goes home and sleeps with all 3 of them at once and falls in love with America. That is going to be the feeling of foreigners coming to Big Ten schools for college and then getting swept up in college football. It's going to have the same impact on them.
Yeah.
So
by sleep, he means they all took a nap together, by the way. So
very wholesome. Right. Yeah, very wholesome.
It was incredibly wholesome. That movie is actually better than I thought it would be. All right, you got a lot of quarterbacks that are transferring into the SEC, and this will affect how the SEC shakes out in 2024 and perhaps 2025. So I want to dig into that because Tennessee's in a very fortunate situation where they're not relying on a quarterback, which is scary. I mean, we saw Notre Dame have to go with a Sam Hartman route, and I thought he played okay this year, but it's not like he stepped in and he was the second coming of John Elway. On the flip side, we've seen Caleb Williams transfer from Oklahoma to Southern California, and that worked, but partially because he had his coach there that went with him too. So I think that's really scary to depend on a quarterback that's going to transfer into the SEC, but it's also scary for the opponents because the opponents are going to have to face a quarterback that they are not as equipped to play because they just haven't prepared nearly as much. So let's get into that list of quarterbacks that could hit the SEC and possibly hit the SEC with a ground running. And it's brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Enjoy life better when you see better. Local vision service for LASIK, cataract surgery, and regular eye examination. ccteyes.com. ccteyes.com. Look at me. No contacts, no glasses. It's pretty awesome. Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. So, Caleb, who are some quarterbacks we need to be aware of? I know it looks like Arkansas is taking in, was it Talon Green? He's going to Arkansas.
So just a couple breaking news things before we go to the list. Well, not breaking, but news that we have to get out of the way. Boise State quarterback Talon Green has transferred to Arkansas. The big story to me is that Dylan Gabriel transferred from Oklahoma to Oregon. I did not see that one coming, but just because I thought Oklahoma was going to be in the race. But yes, those are the 2 major ones that have happened so far.
Give Dylan Gabriel's background again. Doesn't he seem like a guy who just likes to travel?
I mean, he's gone from Florida to Oklahoma to Oregon. That is like covering the country, isn't it?
Yeah. So
Central Florida,
I thought that was super weird that he went to Oregon, but I think that makes Oklahoma not nearly as good. And they are now an SEC team as we talk about it moving forward.
And when we talk about transfers that are red flags, that's a red flag for Brent Venables. That is the type of transfer that is a red flag.
Totally agree. That's one that you cannot argue. I don't care if you're the most ardent Oklahoma supporter that they ask him to leave. I don't care what you say. You would not, even if you had a Nico top quarterback or an Arch top quarterback, an Arch Manning top quarterback on the roster, you would still say, I don't know that he's going to be ready in 2024. So you need to hang out here. I would have said the same thing to KJ Jefferson at Arkansas, but we can debate that. But you would have told him that and say, you're good for 2024. What are you even worried about? So don't tell me that they pushed him out the door because I don't believe it. Who else do we need to be aware of?
All right, so here are the transfers that are out there. Cam Ward transferring from Washington State and DJ Uiagalelei transferring from Oregon State. Now, you would say Uiagalelei likes to transfer a lot, but Oregon State is not going to be Power 5 next year. Those are 2 Power 5 caliber quarterbacks. This is a sad result of what's happened with realignment because Washington State and Oregon State are left out in the cold. So both of those are out. ESPN is reporting that Tom Luganbill of ESPN says the best fit for Cam Ward is Ohio State, which, as you remember, Kyle McCord has entered the transfer portal, and he wasn't a good fit for Ohio State either. Oh, man, if Cam Ward were there this past year, they might have actually won the national title and fulfilled my prediction.
Yeah, but Luganbill's also just predicting, right? I mean, he's not.
Yes, but he's not. Yes, he's predicting, but he's not wrong. That is by far the best fit for Cam Ward. And so now Ryan Day may not be smart enough to know that because he thought Kyle McCord was a good fit for him this year. And again, Ohio State should fire Ryan Day, but they're not going to listen to me. But Cam Ward is a perfect fit. Then there's Riley Leonard, who's transferring from Duke. I have a feeling he's just going to go to Texas A&M, don't you? Mike Elko's there. He's probably going to Texas A&M.
Yeah, would make a lot of sense. So I don't think that would be. I mean, it helps A&M. A&M to me is the scary team if you're in the SEC next year because I do think they have talent, and I haven't checked their transfer portal in the past day or so. But if they're able to hold on to that talent, then that's a situation. Can I give you a really weird comparison? And I don't want to be the all Cowboys guy all the time. When Barry Switzer stepped in 1994 for Jimmy Johnson because they couldn't get along, Barry Switzer stumbled his way to a Super Bowl. He was eating a hot dog on the sideline during one game and still won a Super Bowl. Now, Deion Sanders helped, and I don't think they win it without him, but that team was so loaded. Their second stringers from 92 won a Super Bowl for Barry Switzer in 95. So I think you worry that A&M could be like that they have that many guys that have coached properly and not resentful of the amount of money, the NIL money that went to the freshman class 2 years ago, that I think that you could be special there in year one because I really like Elko as well. Portions of the program brought to you by Don Self. Customer service still matters. State Farm agent Don Self and his team take customer service very seriously. For well over 40 years, they built their business and reputation on taking care of their customers. They are your State Farm agent for the greater Chattanooga area. Call 423-396-2126 or go to donself.net, donself.net. It's right down below. I know a lot of people are price shopping. What happens when you turn in that claim? Make sure that you're well covered. Don Self, your State Farm agent in the greater Chattanooga area. So I don't know that any quarterback transferring out of the SEC makes major headline news other than KJ Jefferson. I want to get back to Uiagalelei for a moment. I think he is very Joe Milton-esque. I think he's stiff. I don't think he processes incredibly quick. I think he gets the ball out slowly because of a very labored sort of release. I think he could make a lot. I mean, any quarterback that we've mentioned makes Vanderbilt better, right? But does he make a contender better? I think the contenders are in pretty good shape.
Kind of depends on the system. You are right about Uiagalelei, but Uiagalelei and Milton, they are the type of quarterbacks that actually can work in certain college systems. Milton's problem was he never was a fit for Josh Heupel's system at all. Like, that was just not a good match ever. But there are some offenses that Milton probably could have worked out in. Look, I'll just say it. Before people figured him out, the offense Gus Malzahn used to run could have been friendly to Milton, quite honestly. Using a quarterback's legs a lot more. He wouldn't have been Cam Newton. I'm not saying that, but he maybe could have been Nick Marshall. I could see that with Uiagalelei. You may disagree, but
I think you're being very nice. Everybody likes to accuse me of just ripping Joe Milton for the sake of ripping Joe Milton. I just think when you have accuracy issues, processing issues, and you get the ball and your delivery's slow as well, I just think you're going to have intrinsic issues like a sports car without a steering wheel. I just don't think it's going to work.
You know what offense you could run? Nobody runs it anymore. The triple option. That's a perfect offense for those quarterbacks.
He doesn't want to run the football.
I know, but think about it. You have to be willing to get hit. He's big, so he could get hit, and you just got to have a big arm. So
all right. So if they do a lobotomy on him and take out the portion of his brain that doesn't want to run, and they put him in a triple option, which is no longer running college football, then he would be an All-American.
He'd be great. Yes. So Ukulele, by the way, it's funny that you compared them because Ukulele, a lot of people are thinking that Florida might be his next option. Florida State's up there too, but he might go to either of those schools. And so what you're saying is Tennessee should hope Ukulele goes to Florida. The other one, a couple others. The one transferring out of the SEC, since you asked that, is Will Rogers, who's transferred out of Mississippi State. I don't know what's in store for Mississippi State. Jeff Levy is there. I believe he brought his quarterback, didn't he? I could be wrong on that. So I think that's going to I don't think that's a big deal. Just running through a few others. Dante Moore, very telling. He's the one who transferred, who said he wants to develop basically a direct shot at Chip Kelly. He can end up at one of the Florida schools or Michigan. Will Howard out of Kansas State. People are thinking USC. Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina. Now, here's a quarterback at a smaller level, Dave, that could be a star at the right system in Power 5 football. Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina. He was under Jamie Chadwell for a while. Chadwell just went undefeated at Liberty with Kadon Salter. So watch out for him. And then just running through MJ Morris, transferring from NC State. And Tyler Van Dyke, transferring from Miami, decides I need a coach who is not as stupid as Mario Cristobal to play for.
I tell you what, somebody's going to get a surprise little jewel with Will Rogers. I like Will Rogers. I mean, if Tennessee has Will Rogers last year instead of Joe Milton, they're winning at least one more game, maybe two.
No, they're not. They're still 8-4. They weren't even in these games.
I still think they could have beaten Alabama and Tuscaloosa if they convert on those red zone. But you and I disagreed about that yesterday.
Are we revisiting that again?
I'm not.
They're not beating Alabama and Tuscaloosa.
Ukulele should join a bluegrass band. That would be fantastic. I would be.
Oh, Kentucky could be calling.
There you go. I just don't. I don't know why everybody thinks that Will Rogers is just okay. I think part of that is because he was in a limited system, because Mike Leach's system, God rest his soul, was not incredibly complicated. It was just let's throw the ball around a lot. Portions of the program brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. Don't trust a fly-by-night HVAC company to tell you that you need a new unit that could cost you thousands or more. cityheatandair.com, and they'll bring you the Vol report with Cooper Mays that'll post later today. So if you haven't hit that like and subscribe button, be sure and do so. As I always remind you, the show represented by Banks and Jones. So now we've got some threats, and I absolutely love threats. And I love threats when they're about a meaningless bowl game. And I can't wait for some schools to do this. It might be terrible for them long term, but I would love it if they did that. So Florida State, we talked about this, has threatened to boycott the Orange Bowl. And as far as boycotting the Orange Bowl, why would they do so? Because they didn't make the college football playoff. Can a college really do this? Possibly.
What's the ramifications if they do? Bowl bids are nothing but invites. They're privately owned. As you know, they're all individually privately owned. They're nothing but invites. They have contracts with conferences. Does the conference have a bylaw? Does the ACC have a stipulation that you have to agree to go play in the Orange Bowl if you choose to go, if you get the invite?
Well, but what are you... The Orange Bowl is never going to invite you back again because you've left them standing at the altar.
Okay, who cares with the playoff coming next year? It's a 12-team playoff. And this is something I warned about. So here's what I will say. The goal of the boycott would be to have such an impact that you do something. It's an empty threat now because the 12-team playoff is coming next year, Dave. So you wouldn't force college football to change anything, right? Because the playoff is coming next year. You know who could have benefited from a boycott? Who should have done it? Auburn in 2004. If Auburn had boycotted the Sugar Bowl when they were undefeated and didn't get a shot to play USC and Oklahoma, we would have had a playoff the next year in college football. But now, with a 12-team playoff coming, this is an empty threat. But this gets to a larger point. The only reason I'm kind of for it is, look, I've thought every way possible to make college football perfect while maintaining traditions. It's not possible. I've like written things out to figure out because one of the traditions I like are bowl games. But here's the truth of the matter. College football, a playoff system, and bowl games just can't coexist. They can't.
Amen.
You cannot have bowl games that are not part of the playoff and have them matter. You just can't. And bowl season, it used to be before the playoff. This week is when bowl season starts after the Army-Navy game. It was always, remember those smaller, irrelevant bowls? They were still super exciting, and the stadiums were full, remember? When you would see Georgia State and Villanova, they're not even Division I, but you know what I'm talking about. You would still see full stadiums. But when you create a playoff, by definition, you skew national media coverage to the playoff, don't you?
Yes.
And by skewing national media coverage to the playoff, you naturally render every other bowl game irrelevant. So y'all got to stop with this delusion that you can keep bowl games if you expand the college football playoff. You can't. It's not possible.
I think you can keep them, but don't get super excited about it. If let's say, what would be the best bowl game that's not a part of the college football playoff right now?
This year?
No. Next year. Okay. Next year with a 12.
Okay, so you'll have the orange, sugar, rose, fiesta, peach, cotton will all be part of the playoff because it's going to be kind of rotated to semifinals, quarterfinals.
Okay, so the best Chick-fil-A.
Holiday Bowl.
Chick-fil-A for peach. Sorry, you threw me. All right, so what's the best bowl outside of that group?
The Citrus Bowl, the Holiday Bowl, or the Sun Bowl. Those would be the three. Those are like the Citrus Bowl is the best one, but the Holiday and the Sun, as you know, Dave, have they're steeped in history. The Sun Bowl is like one of the oldest ones that's not a regular bowl game. But yeah, one of the ones Tennessee's going to this year, as you mentioned the Citrus Bowl. So we're talking about no one's going to watch it next year because all the coverage will be on the playoff. And there will be playoff games during the time that bowl games are going on. What do you think is going to eat up all the coverage?
No, true. And so this was brought up, has it ever happened by a mead drinker? It hasn't happened, but it has happened with, there were situations in which a 5-7 team could get in, or a 5-6 team, excuse me, could get in because
AARP ruling.
They didn't have enough openings. And there have been teams that said, hey, listen, we've been a good college football program. We're not going to go to a bowl game at 5-6 before it expanded to 12. So that has happened. That would be the closest thing, but it's never happened that somebody skipped a bowl game. I don't think it'll ever happen because I already know people that are excited about going to Orlando and making a trip about it. I know that people that go to every bowl game, I don't think they would care if it was the Northern Maine Bowl. They would go to Maine. So I don't think that's ever going to happen, but I would love for it to happen. I would love for Florida State to say, we ain't showing up.
Well, Dave, the reason it wouldn't happen with Tennessee is largely, except for the Fiesta Bowl in 99, but largely Tennessee fans will fill up a stadium. Florida State is like an SEC fan base, don't get me wrong, but I don't think Florida State fans are traveling to Miami for this. You think Florida State fans are going to travel to Miami for this bowl game and get excited for it? No. That stadium will be full. Honestly, Georgia fans may not travel either because they're upset. I just thought about this. This might be the emptiest New Year's Six Bowl you've ever seen. I don't know if Florida State or Georgia fans are willing to travel to Miami for this. They're both disappointed about being there.
Well, I would hope that they would give those tickets to like the Boys and Girls Club or something, but maybe they won't. I don't think you should ever see an empty Orange Bowl, but you start getting a little further down the list. You're probably going to see some empty bowl games. I'll be real frank with you. I have concerns about Tennessee's motivation to play in the Citrus Bowl because of the noise that's around the program right now. Again, we talked about the transfers. I don't have a big issue with those defensive backs cruising on out because they haven't been that effective. But I do have an issue with the feel of the program right now. It feels like you're playing out a quarterback who is going to play in his last game and move on when everybody wants to see Nico. So at what point are they going to announce that it's Milton and not Nico? That's probably going to happen at some point. They're holding these practices over the weekend, but we'll hopefully provide some more insight as the day moves on. But no open periods, no media availability. I think Tennessee is due for a flat bowl game as a team. And I could be darn wrong, and they're hard to predict. And I never made these predictions until I got to the bowl site and was around both teams. But don't you think it's possible that Tennessee could have a flat bowl game? Not only the team, I'm not nearly as worried about the fans, but there's probably some fans that'll say, Miami's fun. By the way, if you go to Florida a lot, Miami's great. It's next to the beach. I love Tampa as well. Orlando, other than Disney World, is absolutely one of the worst places to be. And to some of us that have been to Disney World with kids 18 times, you would say that even makes it worse. So I don't know that people are excited to go to Orlando. I mean, among your Tennessee fans, who do you talk to? Has anybody said, I can't wait to go to the Citrus Bowl? This time last year, everybody was like, you didn't make the college football playoff, but that Orange Bowl in Miami is going to be awesome. Do you feel that way about the Citrus Bowl? Do you get that vibe?
No, but I've unless it's obvious, I've long since given up on predicting who's going to be up or down for a bowl game, because now last year it was obvious. Clemson, being in the college football playoff, they were disappointed to be there, lost their last regular season game, and for Tennessee it was their best bowl appearance in 20 years. So you knew who was going to be up and you knew who wasn't going to be up. But with something like this is a little more speculation, and so it's a lot harder for me to figure out who's going to be up. And just as an example, 2007 day when Tennessee lost to LSU in the SEC title game and went to the Outback Bowl, I was certain they wouldn't be up for that game because of how they lost to LSU. And they were really up to play Wisconsin. And Wisconsin was up for that game. That was actually a really hard-hitting, tough game. It was actually a really fun bowl game to watch. I'm sure you were there covering it at the time. And I remember 2001. Well, Tennessee had suffered its worst loss in history to LSU. Went and beat the brakes on Michigan in the Citrus Bowl. Now, honestly, I'm not sure Tennessee was up for that Citrus Bowl. I just think they were that much better than Michigan that year. Honestly, I think the talent.
I was thinking that the other day when I referenced that in a column, and I thought that too. I was like, Michigan just seems slow. So who will be more up for this Citrus Bowl? Let me ask you: is it Iowa, Tennessee? Brought to you by Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow them on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia. They send out daily updates. Just go to Facebook and follow them at Sports Treasures TN. Sports Treasures TN. The daily updates are awesome. So who should be more up for this bowl game? Iowa or Tennessee?
Well, this is difficult for me because Iowa did win the Big Ten West. They're 10-3. Nobody expected them to win the Big Ten overall, so they can't be that disappointed about losing to Michigan. But you don't think the aura of staleness at Iowa with Kirk Ferentz has creeped to the players a little bit whenever they play anybody good? Like, they're a bad football team.
Yeah, but I sense they love that guy because he's a player development guy, and they probably showed up and couldn't play, and he's made them into players. I sense he's a very trying to think of maybe an example or a comparison. I can't think of one, but the players usually love player development guys, right? Because they don't cut bait with them and run them off.
So David Cutcliffe.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, because he was told by Ole Miss to fire his coaching staff, most of his coaching staff, and he didn't, and he fell on the sword for his own coaching staff. So yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Or even to a certain degree, Rick Barnes in basketball too. It's just Rick Barnes grinds you mentally, but I think players respect Rick Barnes. I mean, Kevin Durant won't hear a word against Rick Barnes to this day. So yeah, I think I could see that maybe with Kirk Ferentz. That's highly possible. And they're usually not too bad in bowl games. I will say that. It's again, in terms of the line of scrimmage, Iowa's going to win this. They're a physical team. We'll break down the actual game later. It's hard to know who's going to come out flat. I'll tell you this, though. Long term, these bowl games are going by the wayside. They're not going to be able to get the money they want. Here's what they should have done, Dave. And this is you talked about the Chick-fil-A Bowl the other day. You want to know why the Chick-fil-A Bowl is an elite bowl? You want to know what they did that was so smart?
Well,
they create
In my opinion, they were smart about the matchups, but they don't have that power anymore because the SEC tells you which teams to take.
Yes, but they were stuck with bad matchups for a long time because they were down on the totem pole on which teams could go to bowls. You know what they did? They created a preseason game. They created an in-season kickoff game, and they would get the top teams to go play in that. Think about the NIT. The NIT is totally irrelevant now. So what did the NIT do? They said, okay, we'll create a preseason tournament with the top teams, and that's how we'll get our money in basketball. I don't know why other bowl. I think you might start seeing that in the future. Like Labor Day weekend, the Citrus Bowl or these other bowls will be like, yeah, we're not getting a lot with the end of the year. We're going to do a in-season bowl game, and we'll get like 2 elite teams to play. That would be fun, wouldn't it? I know you hate neutral site games, but like Tennessee going to Orlando to play USC in an in-season Citrus Bowl, that'd be epic.
I think you should do what Metallica is doing right now. I think you should do 2 bowl games in the same city. Let's go ahead and let's see if we can stress the logistics of that town, huh? How many hotel rooms you got?
There you go.
Now, Smoky Mountain Red brings up, I do not see a school giving up free money. Here's the issue, because you receive federal money, you basically got to spend all of your bowl money at the bowl site. So I can remember years where Tennessee lost money on a bowl game. I can remember because they took a lot of people. I can remember one year they made $50,000. It was like, why even report that? And so I don't think it's a money issue, but maybe they do need to pony up the dollars. The other thing that the Chick-fil-A Bowl did is they made it more of an event. And I covered a lot of those. In the beginning, you just show up for like 3 days and you eat a lot of Chick-fil-A sandwiches, and that's great. But by the end, there were a lot of events leading up to the bowls for the players, the teams, and even the media. And there's just a lot of things to do. And that's a big factor. So you want to give your players a reward, but in the end, don't they want money? I mean, who would take a 3 football player extravaganzas and a chicken wing eating contest over $100,000? I wouldn't.
Well, yeah, but Dave, you do know what you just talked about is how bowl games started. I'm going to do on our YouTube thing. I'm going to do a history on how bowl games started, guys. Bowl games started because the Tournament of Roses, which is an annual New Year's parade and celebration in California, in Pasadena, decided we should have a football game with this just for fun. So bowl game started because the football game was part of an overall 4-day weekend event and fair. Chick-fil-A Bowl realized that, didn't they? And by the way, if you still go to Pasadena, I don't know if you've ever been to the Rose Bowl. I haven't, but I've heard of it. It's still that. It is still a week-long, Tournament of Roses parade, fair, carnival, and the football game is just part of it. They get that at the Rose Bowl more than other places do.
I haven't been to the Rose Bowl. I've been to the stadium and covered that Tennessee UCLA game, but I haven't been to an actual Rose Bowl because Tennessee couldn't stop the quarterback draw in the SEC championship game in 2001. Not that I'm
with the greatest interior defensive line in history, by the way,
yes.
In college.
I'm not still bitter. I absolutely am not. Why Tennessee fans are absolutely crushing this NFL quarterback. Up next, stay tuned with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. I mean, they're going to. Poor guy. Show represented by Banks and Jones.
Got cataracts? We can fix that. Never miss another moment. With a little help from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn at cctis.com.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. Dare to compare.
We believe every day is a good day to be thirsty. With free samples on draft and lots of flavors to choose from, Tennessee Cider Company prepares a hard cider that's easy to enjoy. Some say it's the signature cider of the South. Others say it's the cure to your craving. They all say you'll savor every sip. The area of Gatlinburg has so much to offer, and so does Tennessee Cider Company. Add us to your list for shopping and fun experiences. You'll be glad you made the trip. Find our cidery in the Mountain Mall on the Gatlinburg Parkway. Sip smart. Sip the good stuff. Sip Tennessee Cider Company. Thirsty yet? Doors open at 10 a.m.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Wild mass chaos. Not only is the transfer portal in full play, but Tennessee, for some reason, and its fan base is trying to destroy a quarterback who did nothing but lose to them. Can you pull up that tweet? Is that by Wes Rucker? Rucker's made he's gotten a lot of mentions on the program today. Welcome back. Hit the like and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate that. Can you pull up that tweet? Because Will Levis, by the way, led the Titans back last second, and but it was just a fantastic finish for Levis in his career. But apparently that's not exactly what a lot of Tennessee fans are thinking. As let me pull this up, as Wes Rucker, our friend at Vols 24/7, pulls up. Don't think I can't read that. That's too small.
So somebody responded to Wes Rucker because Wes Rucker was questioning Will Levis. Vol fans quiet and butthurt that Levis won. Don't think, and Wes Rucker responds, don't think anyone who's a legit Vol fan and legit Titan fan ever wanted him to be bad. Many of them just didn't think he was a good pick. If he proves to be good, they'll love him. All kinds of non-SEC Vols on the Titans roster. I think I'm going to say just non-Vols. But either way, the point being is this. There is an idea going around that because Levis is the type of young quarterback, good or bad, Dave, you know this. Rookie quarterbacks get a lot of love and backing and support from their fan base who want to believe in their future, right?
Right.
There has been a groundswell of Titans fans. This is the first time where the fan base believes in the rookie quarterback less than the national media does. And it's very clear that the Titans fans don't believe in Will Levis as much as the national media does. Now, the working theory is that because Kentucky is a SEC East rival, which is not true, but that working theory is because of that, Titans fans are rooting against Will Levis. I will say this. It is half true that the crossover of Titans and Vols fans is why they don't believe in Will Levis. But it's not because they're rooting against him. It's because they saw him play in college. Okay, we all saw him play who cover SEC football, and he's not that good. And the issues that plagued him in college were plaguing him in the NFL. What we said about Will Levis, Dave, and you can back me up because you probably said it too. Unlike Joe Milton, Will Levis has perfect touch on his throws and is very accurate when he throws the ball, right? He can make the right throws. He can make great throws. The only problem with Will Levis is his pocket presence and decision-making is horrible. He doesn't know when to audible. He doesn't know where to step in the pocket. So what he does is he makes a great throw, but then he makes so many bad decisions to go with it. So national media doesn't understand that Titans fans would love... Look, guys, NFL teams, NFL fan bases don't care where the colleges that their players came from. They want to win. I don't care how much of a fan they are of their college football team, honestly. You think Falcons fans are saying, don't draft this player, he went to Florida, and I'm a Georgia fan? One of the Titans' favorite players early on was Javon Curse, who came from Florida and gave Peyton Manning hell when he was at Tennessee. And so, do you guys really think Titans fans are rooting against Will Levis? No, we just know, and I say this as a Titans fan, what we saw, and last night doesn't change that. Because last night, Miami was up 27-13. Will Levis threw a pick six on a screen to a big man, and then he threw a bad pitch to Derrick Henry to fumble. I was happy. I was congratulating him because I wanted to lose. And I'm like, that was a great team effort to try to lose that game. But then Miami, because NFL teams, Dave, do this all the time, and it boggles my mind why they do this. They change up their defensive schemes the last 2 drives of the game and deviate from what they've been doing the whole game. Miami played soft zone, soft coverage. Tennessee goes and scores 2 touchdowns and wins the game. But Levis, Titans fans not believing in him has nothing to do with the fact that most of them are Vol fans. I mean, well, it does, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't have anything to do with them rooting against Levis. It's just because they saw enough of him play in college.
Well, there's a lot of things at play there. For one, the Tennessee Titans, and you may or may not know this, they still have their corporate headquarters in Houston. So I don't know that they've ever really committed to Tennessee. So that means I don't think that they have a real feel for the room. And they didn't realize how disliked Will Levis was. I agree with you. If you go in there and win, nobody's going to care. But the fact that the Titans showed early with Joey Kent getting drafted that they wanted to build some PR, I believe, because I thought Joey Kent was overvalued by the Titans, frankly. And I think that with Levis, the PR wasn't good because so many Tennessee Volunteer fans that were Titans fans had seen him play. But I mean, at some point you have to leave that behind. And he wasn't good at Kentucky. I don't think he's good. However, I'm not ready to completely pass judgment on him because he dealt with a lot of injuries his senior year. And he's playing at Kentucky, which is at best the top half talented teams in the SEC, probably like the bottom half. So, but they're in the middle of the pack somewhere. So I'm not sure Will Levis isn't going to be good. I'm curious as to our message board. What player did you most root against because of his SEC play or even Tennessee play? I don't root against anybody. To me, it's just bad karma, as Taylor Swift once said. But if Tennessee fans want to root against Tyler Bray, I got no problem with that. I know he's done now, but if they wanted to root against him, I got no problem with that whatsoever. Are there other people you would root against because of what they did to Tennessee? How about Jabbar Gaffney? I bet you don't like seeing him catch a bunch of touchdown passes, do you? What are some other names, Caleb, that you think Tennessee's fan base just absolutely would love to not only do poorly in the NFL, and we're not talking about injuries, but we're talking about have a long 10, 12-year NFL career in which, for instance, Jabbar Gaffney drops a lot of passes, but manages to be on the roster, is incredibly disliked because when a fan base in the NFL turns on you, they never come back. Who are some guys? Jesse Palmer gets a vote from Smoky Mountain Red. Who else do you just root against that made the NFL either previously or now, if you're a Tennessee football fan?
I need to say this before I get to this because I got some names, but Will Levis was hurt because of the way he plays. Dave, you missed it last night. He scrambled on a play and he lowered his shoulder into Jalen Ramsey. You know how stupid that is?
Oh, I know. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I totally agree with that.
So that's not, so he's already not going to last in the NFL because he does stupid things like that. So, okay. As far as names,
here's a tight one from Dylan. This is what I'm looking for. Henry To'o is playing for the what? How'd I do on that?
You did it good. You did it right.
Yeah, I know. I just like making fun of myself. Henry To'o is playing for the Texans, and the Titans play them next week, hoping Derek trucks him into next week. There you go, Dylan.
Dylan just proved my point. If you think Tennessee reflexively roots against rival players in the NFL, why do they love Derrick Henry so much? Who was a Heisman winner where? At Alabama. Who do fans in Tennessee hate more, Alabama or Kentucky? So that's a great point. You made 2 good points right there, Dylan. You are the hero of the day because you mentioned Derek and you made me think of that, and you brought up Henry To'o. That's a good one.
I'll tell you the other thing that I think was a real factor is I think a lot of people didn't like Tim Tebow because of the success he had, and they thought that was a team gone rogue, which it was. And he did play the religious card a lot, which he has lived up to. He has not had a stumble along the way. So I think, and now we have to respect that. A lot of people say things about religion and then they don't live up to
poorly
it.
in Vol Nation, though. But
Pardon
that wasn't
me?
going to play poorly among Tennessee fans. That was going to play poorly among Tennessee fans. I mean, or East Tennessee's
no, but I think
too.
there was. I was talking more about some of the members of the media. That
National media, yeah, they were.
Yeah.
Well, there were some other aspects about Tim Tebow. I think the circus created around Tim Tebow. Look, I believed in Tim Tebow. I thought he deserved a chance. But when you saw like the 700 Club going out there saying it was divine him winning, that was sickening. I hate it when people say that it's divine when you're winning football games. God doesn't
even
care
know
who
that.
wins football games.
Well,
yeah,
and it's absurd to say that he was, and it's also absurd to say he was going to be a good NFL quarterback. I could look at that guy and see that he had issues.
Yeah.
Some of the same ones,
Nate,
quite frankly, that Joe Milton had, and that's accuracy. What about this one? I want to get your thoughts on it. Hunter says Jarrett Garantano, maybe?
That's not fair. Jarrett Garantano, yes, he struggled at Tennessee, but guys, Dave, will you back me on this? He was in a bad situation at Tennessee with where he was. I think that's very unfair to him. Now, some might say that with Tyler Bray, but Tyler Bray had rare arm talent, and at least the offense was good when Tyler Bray was there. I mean, he was thrown to 2 NFL receivers, had an NFL offensive line backing him. So I can't go with Jarrett Garantano. I will say this. You know who actually was really good in the NFL from Tennessee, who I felt Tennessee fans never really embraced when he was in the pros? And I'm not saying he didn't deserve it. Was Arian Foster. And he was one of Tennessee's best players in the NFL.
He was, and I don't think Tennessee fans ever liked Arian Foster.
They didn't.
And yeah, there are a lot of reasons why, but some untimely fumbles. If you actually go back, and I wrote a story on this, and I still remember they headlined it "Fumbling Foster," which the headline just steals everything that you've written away at times when it's that inappropriate. He did fumble. But it wasn't, somebody else remembers that headline, Fumbling Foster. But he didn't fumble an inordinate amount. They were just poorly timed. I mean, as many times as he touched the ball, both in terms of running the ball and receptions, he didn't really fumble. I wrote a whole story on it, did the ratio of other guys. He didn't really fumble that much more. But it was just the worst time you could possibly fumble, right?
Yep. You're right. He rarely fumbled, honestly. So it's kind of funny you bring that up because you're right. He rarely fumbled. It was just the times he did were absolutely brutal times. And also, a lot of them were, so the Penn State game, that was an unforced fumble. Like, it was just a standard handoff over the middle.
Yeah.
And
he had another one against South Carolina that I can't remember.
Eric Young recovered. That would have lost Tennessee the game.
Right. Who recovered it again?
Eric Young, the offensive tackle, recovered it. Heads up play, the offensive lineman.
I thought it was the kid from Chattanooga. I don't get caught up. I thought it was anyway. Whoever they recovered it, but that would have been the nail. And I can't stand you coughing. By the way, Arian Foster, the only player that I've ever covered that went out of his way to say, "Hey, I want to be on your radio show," which I thought, "Hey, that's super cool." Maybe we're growing here. Maybe we're really exploring. And instead, he just wanted to be on my radio show to threaten me to a boxing match.
Oh my gosh! But here's the funny part about this, Dave. You know what's funny? Let's just go Tennessee running backs because Tennessee is running back you for a while. Arian Foster.
For the record, I would have whipped that. No, I wouldn't have. I'd have got beat down. Go ahead.
Tennessee. We always talk about wide receiver you or whatever. They had a string of Pro Bowl running backs from Charlie Garner through Arian Foster and even to Alvin Kamara because you had Charlie Garner, Jamal Lewis, Travis Henry, Arian Foster. I mean, I'm naming superstar running backs in the NFL. Now, Charlie Garner, I got no issues with. He's a good dude. But Jamal Lewis, Travis Henry, Arian Foster, Alvin Kamara. Arian Foster is the least liked of those four, but he's probably the only one that has had no off-field issues since he's gotten to the NFL.
You know who I think would have been disliked, if not for, I don't know, a national championship, is Jamal Lewis. I thought in 99 that he kind of melded in to keep himself healthy for the NFL. I didn't think he was ready to go in that Kentucky game late. If you remember, Travis Henry got hurt and he had to get put in the game.
Vanderbilt game. It was a Vanderbilt game.
Was it the Vanderbilt game? Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought he was good and done. And if Tennessee didn't have a national championship under their pocket, of which he didn't really contribute to because he got hurt in September, I think he would have been one of those guys like, didn't get what you wanted to out of him.
Well, remember, midway through the 99 season, people wanted Travis Henry starting over Jamal Lewis because whatever you felt about I'll say this about Tennessee fans, Dave, you got to give them this. They can recognize heart versus talent. As Butch Jones would say, 5-star heart. And whatever you think about Travis Henry off the field, man, he ran hard, didn't he? Did any running back have more heart than Travis Henry?
No.
The way he played?
No, absolutely not.
The same, by the way, and I think that was
definitely no more children.
Exactly. That's true. That's why I said all field. Mid-2000s. You brought up Arian Foster. You know who was teammates with Arian Foster? Montario Hardesty. Dave, I can tell you this. Every Tennessee fan preferred Montario Hardesty to Foster, even though Foster was better. Because Montario
Don't do
Hardesty
the numbers
ran
in your
hard.
head. Don't do the numbers in your head. But who do you think has more of this? Travis Henry children or Off the Hook Sports employees? You just had a guess right now.
Oh, I'm trying to. Okay, I'm going to say Travis Henry children at this moment.
I actually know that it's dead even. Chattanooga Mortgage, congratulations. Your home search just got easier buying a home, and Chattanooga has never been easier with Chattanooga Mortgage. Chatmortgage.com, chatmortgage.com. Bruce and his office were nice enough to purchase some of the Celebrate 98 books to give to some of his realtors that he works with. We would encourage you to do the same because they're in group pricing now. So all you have to do is click right below or click on the Celebrate 98 tab on offthehooksports.com. But we've got it all there where we can ship it out and take care of you. It's Celebrate 98, the untold stories behind the Tennessee Vols 1998 National Championship game, available in soft and hardcover copies. We also have some autographed copies from Fred White still available, and I'll be glad to personalize any that you might order. So we would love for you to do that. And thank you, Bruce, for being a part of what we do. Support our sponsors. We remind you that we are represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, banksandjones.com. All right, so it is time for our 5 favorite minutes. Almost, but first, it's Off the Hook Sports History. Gene McKever? How would you pronounce it?
Well, Johnny Majors used to say Gene McKever, but that's Johnny Majors, so I would say Gene McKever.
Gene McKever?
I remember with Gene McKever.
He was called the best player I ever coached. So I teased this earlier by General Nealon. Best player I ever coached, best I ever saw. That was by General Nealon. The statement says much in light of the players that passed through the hill under the greatest coach that has been a part of Tennessee football. From the halfback position, McKever scored 130 points for the 1929 Vols, a single season UT record that still stands today. He has gotten All-American status and is in the College Football Hall of Fame, which he certainly should be. There's no question about that. All right, our 5 favorite minutes begins right now. So start the clock. What do you want to talk about? Because we ask you to support our sponsors. We want to support your thoughts, and sometimes they turn into fantastic topics, and whoever comes up with the best topic in our 5 favorite minutes to end of every program will receive a Off the Hook Sports t-shirt. So you'll have Hooker right up front. So might not want to give it to your wife, but it depends. I did give the Hooker shirt to a young lady at the gym, and she goes, I really like the shirt. She said, thank you. She said, but I have to be honest, I can never wear it. And I'm like, well, what do you mean you can't wear it? The quarter, this is last year. The quarterback's name's Hooker. Everybody will get it, right? And she goes, but I'm a teacher. I'm like, well, so what grade do you teach? She goes, high school. Like, you don't think they know what hookers are? Even if you're not backing the Hendon Hooker? There we go. All right. When do we all get legacy Henry running backs get recruited? All right. So when does Tennessee have a legacy running back recruited? A couple of things you guys are kicking around. So our 5
Travis
favorite
Henry's
minutes.
oldest kid is 25 now. So because he was born the year Travis Henry was on the national title team.
That's not going to be our topic because that makes me feel incredibly old.
Travis Henry, but I want to say this. Look, in all seriousness, because we bring this up and we joke about Travis Henry, I think he was preyed on. Travis Henry married a girl 6 years senior when he was 19.
I don't want to turn this into a Travis Henry, our 5 favorite minutes, because his 5 favorite minutes ended up in 18 brutal years. All right.
But okay, so he's got twins born in 2009. So you got until 2027 for like Henry legacy kid to end up in Tennessee. How about that?
Okay, there we go. Wide receiver portal. People asking about the wide receiver portal. A Tulane guy I heard is good, freaky athlete. We want to take a look at the wide receiver portal. And let me ask you this. Is this something that Tennessee should be pushing harder, the wide receiver portal? Because if you look at their experience there, their success rate is higher than anywhere else. Now, I know we're just basically talking about Brew McCoy, but I think Dante Thornton showed that he was coming on towards the end of the season. I think he's at least going to be an above average receiver now. I know we were really down on him during the season, but is this something Tennessee should be mindful of, the positions that they go after, because they have a better success rate with them as opposed to a high school guy who they've got to bring up through the ranks? Your thoughts on Tennessee going after a wide receiver in the portal this year? Where would that rank on the list of priorities?
I don't think I'd rank that high. I think particularly if, as you're reporting is possible, Brew McCoy comes back and you have Mike Matthews, they're not really, yes, they'll lose Mel Keaton, but look, I have a lot of respect for Mel Keaton. I think Chaz Nimrod and Caleb Webb can both fill that void that Mel Keaton's going to leave. So
I think they're all three almost cut from the same cloth, to be real honest with you. Now we're talking about Chris Brazel from Tulane. Is Tennessee a place that you want to come if you're that Tulane wide receiver that's pretty freaky? Or after you've seen what happened with Dante Thornton, where it took a while to get up to speed in this offense, and that there's going to be depth and they're going to settle on 3 guys if they can, is Tennessee as appealing to play at wide receiver as we thought it was this time last year, Caleb?
Not because of Dante Thornton, but it is because of depth. Because what you have to remember is that Dante Thornton's issue was not developing. It was Dante Thornton was hurt. And that's what I was unfair to him. I didn't realize he had been battling injuries for a while. Ramel Keaton had been battling injuries for a while. By the way, Dante Thornton, Ramel Keaton, if you guys want to blame anybody for the horrible way I talked about you, particularly you, Dante Thornton, this year, blame Josh Heupel, because he keeps the injuries so quiet that it's hard. We can only do what we see on the field. It's up to the coaches to let us know a certain level of detail for us to give analysis. I had no idea he was hurt. And so it's not my fault for trashing Dante Thornton so hard. It's Josh Heupel's fault. And I think, so unless Chris Brazel's hurt, I don't think that'll be the issue, but I'll say this. If Chris Brazel's that freakishly athletic, Dave, you talk about one receiver who could dictate coverage. You know what's better than one receiver who could dictate coverage? 2 receivers who could dictate coverage.
Yeah, that's true. Juice Wells would be the one that we've talked a lot about, but man, he seems Ole Miss bound, doesn't he?
Yeah, and he's not going to go to Tennessee with Squirrel White there.
Yeah, and Smoky Mountain Red point out the Tulane player has multiple years, so maybe I'd give that some thought. And then Walter Nolan comes up again as my priority number 1, though. Listen, guys, I think there's a realistic possibility Tennessee's short a little bit of cash is why some of these guys are cruising, especially with the Tyler Barron like tweet. And you only have so much money. There's not a pile of $1 billion sitting out in the
I think it goes the other way. I don't think that, well, I think they're short. I don't think they're short on cash. I think Josh Heupel is telling some boosters they're not worth opening the checkbook for. Or I'll tell you what, look, you don't think Rodney Garner is connected to some boosters? You and I both know Rodney Garner and Tyler Barron don't like each other. You don't think Rodney Garner, even undercutting Josh Heupel, is going to some boosters and saying, don't worry about, don't pay Tyler Barron?
Oh Lord, I would hope not. I wouldn't allow my assistant coaches to have any contact with the boosters.
Well, I think Josh Heupel lets his defense run itself and he stays hands off. So I'm just saying, if you're going to let an assistant do it, Rodney Garner's your guy to do it, right? I mean, the dude he commands more respect than any assistant in the SEC.
Yeah, and question on the message board. Let's address this. Ramel Keaton, is he gone? Yeah, he's out of eligibility. So 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So he's gone. He's out of eligibility. But again, nothing against Ramel Keaton. I think Tennessee's got a couple of guys that can replace him. And Nimrod and Webb, I think they'll be absolutely fine. All right. Have a fantastic day, afternoon, evening. Hit that like and subscribe button one last time for me. Please take a look at the books that are right below. 1998 National Championship Team was special. Celebrate 98, the untold stories behind the Tennessee Vols 1998 National Championship Team. Soft, hard copy. We have autographed copies by different players. So please check that out. Great Christmas presents. We got a group pack if you got a lot of Tennessee fans that are on your Christmas list, and I'll be more than happy to autograph them for you. Have a fantastic day, morning, afternoon, evening, middle of the night, whenever you're watching. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation